Dear colleagues, I am going to make a presentation on the National Board of Accreditation recently evolved and modified self-assessment reports for undergraduate engineering programs. And the new concept has been introduced, first-time accreditation and subsequent accreditation. The presentation is broadly going to be in three parts. The first part will have the NBA background and its membership of Washington Accord. Second part in terms of the recent initiatives of NBA to focus on outcome-based education as well as outcome-based accreditation. And the last part, which is going to be an in-depth detailed part, is how to prepare for self-assessment report, and as you prepare for self-assessment report, how to effect improvement in the overall process and improvement of the quality in the institution. About NBA, NBA was established as a bureau of AICTE in 1994 under Section 10U of AICTE Act. NBA, when it wanted to become a member of Washington Accord, and the practice followed worldwide, is to have complete administrative and academic and financial autonomy from an accrediting agency perspective, became autonomous in January 2010. In April 2013, the Memorandum of Association and rules of NBA were amended to make it completely independent. Today, NBA is completely independent in its functioning, decision making as well as financial autonomy. Does not receive any grant either from the government or from any regulatory authority, and based on the fee collection from the institutions, NBA is able to manage its activities. The broad guidelines of NBA in terms of accreditation is that programs are accredited, not the institution as a whole. And the eligibility for programs to go through NBA process is 2 batches should have passed out. Creditable system of accreditation, because the NBA, the face for NBA is the evaluators, which are typically program evaluators, as it is a program level accreditation. So strength and credibility of NBA process depend largely on the integrity, honesty, expertise and professionalism as exhibited by the evaluators during the course of visit. In order to make system more transparent and creditable, and thus affecting into or resulting into quality assurance and quality enhancement on continuous basis, some of the recent transparent mechanism put into place in NBA system is that report which evaluators submit to NBA is discussed in a meeting in Delhi in the presence of the chair of the committee. Copy of the report in true form, the exact copy without any addition, is sent back to the institution and the program for continuous improvement. Changes, if any, made by the committee in the head office are also communicated to the institution. The most important and significant improvement and the involvement in terms of quality improvement is having a 360-degree feedback. 360-degree feedback typically is during the course of visit, institution gives independent feedback about the team chair and the independent individual evaluator. Evaluator gives the feedback about the team chair. Team chair gives the feedback about each of the evaluators. All put together gives the feedback about the institution and about the NBA, the manner in which visit was conducted. Composition of evaluation team, typically for a one program, minimum 3 members, as 2 members per discipline and 1 team chair. Chairman is selected with significant experience in program evaluation, typically discipline-centric expertise and experience, not below the rank of professor when we look at academia. From the industry, one should be postgraduate with minimum 15 years of experience, and the scientist from research and development laboratories with the D and above category of scientist. 2 program evaluators per program. Recently, there is a change in NBA process that has not been reflecting here, because it has been officially announced by NBA that now onwards there will be 1 program evaluator per program. The visit, typically if it is a single program visit, then the visit is conducted for 2 days, and if it is multiple program, then visit is 3 days, typically 2.5 days, where the 3rd day the exit meeting takes place. The important part of NBA visit is that all the stakeholders committee interacts during the course of visit. It starts with the head of the institution, department, program, as well as the members of the governing board. Then to understand the direction and the growth plan of the institution, faculty members, alumni, students, employers. So all set of stakeholders, whether in internal stakeholders and external stakeholders, committee interacts and then make a judgment based on the documents submitted by the institution vis-a-vis opinion of the various stakeholders on the manner in which institution is developing and delivering education in the respective discipline. NBA as a facilitator of outcome-based education and outcome-based accreditation is that in India wanted to become a member of Washington Accord, which NBA became in 2014. The Washington Accord memberships, typically if you name any country which is in developed country, USA, UK, Japan, Germany, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, all are member. Now, Washington Accord membership is what? It is actually the equivalence of undergraduate engineering education for the purposes of higher education and practice in any of the member countries, provided the degree is accredited by the respective accrediting agency in the respective country. So, we have to remember that Washington Accord is for undergraduate engineering education, and NBA is a full member, permanent member of Washington Accord. Various orientation and training programs for the program evaluators as well as for the institution faculty members are also conducted to make them aware about the new concept of outcome based education and outcome based accreditation through webinars, extensive use of ICT, information and communication technologies, guest lectures from the educationists from India and abroad. NBA in recent past has conducted lectures with support from the Director Abbott, Michael Milligan, in order to, because they are considered to be an expert in terms of outcome based education, not only from the delivery perspective but from the assessment perspective also. So, dedicated customized program modules for program evaluators and team chairs have been conducted in recent past, and the collaborative initiative with many premier institutions NBA has initiated in recent past with IITs, National Academy of Engineering, research laboratories, FICCI, CII, in order to bring industry perspective in ensuring the quality of institution through NBA accreditation. NBA, as I said, India wanted to become a member of Washington Accord. So, from the part of AICT it became autonomous. Now, the other part, when we looked at the autonomy of institution to become member of Washington Accord, Indian context, the institutions belongs to two category of institutions: affiliated institutions and the institutions which has got academic autonomy. Autonomy, deemed universities, institutions of national importance, renowned institutions. So, India devised or NBA devised models of two-tier system in order to become a member of Washington Accord. Tier 1 institutions are the institutions which will be considered equivalent to a member or the degree which will be recognized by the member countries in the Washington Accord. Tier 2 degrees will not be recognized. Tier 2 institutions are typically non-autonomous institutions since they do not have academic autonomy, but then they will be accredited. That's why this tier system is right now, because Washington Accord membership is for undergraduate engineering domain. So, two-tier system NBA is following for engineering programs. Rest of the programs, recently NBA has merged both the tier system. However, the bottom line is that criteria irrespective of tier 1 and tier 2 remains same, but the weightages and the expectation from the institution and as well as from the program evaluators varies in case of tier. New initiative by NBA in recent past to ensure that NBA programs are, NBA accreditations are given to the programs which actually perceived by the society as a good program in terms of delivering quality engineering education. Some of the qualifier in order to become eligible to apply to NBA for accreditation have been notified by the NBA, and the programs are expected to pay only 10% of the fee when they want to apply for NBA accreditation, and once they are qualified for the further processing, then they need to pay remaining fee as per the number of programs. Essential criteria in case of tier 1 institution, criteria remain same, but the expectation will change, as we will see in the subsequent slide. That vision, mission and program education objectives, institution is expected to have these documents. Approval of AICT for all the years of assessment. NBA has 3 years of assessment. Current year, current assessment year. Typically, assessment year means July to June of any academic year. So, if a visit is going to be conducted in the month of next July, for example, July 2016, then July 15 to June 2016 will become the first assessment year. Then current assessment year -1 will be typically 14-15, and 13-14 will be the base year, which is current assessment year minus second year. The other qualifiers are whether admission, because this is very important component, that institution should have admission putting all the programs together as minimum 60%, average of all the 3 assessment years. Then since NBA is a program level accreditation, so 2 criteria in terms of 60% admissions at institution level and also 60% admissions at the program level, which is looking for NBA accreditation. Teacher student ratio as 1:20, whether the 2 professors or one professor and one associate professor during the period of assessment were available in the department. 20%, when we look at the number of PhDs in the department which is seeking accreditation, now this is not at the program level, this is at the department level, that 20% of the faculty members should have a doctorate qualification. Then the placement ratio in the average of last 3 years should be more than 40%. Placement includes placement in companies, government sector, higher studies, entrepreneurship and so on, and 2 batches, and head of the department should have a doctorate qualification. So if in a program qualifies all these pre-qualifiers, then there is an official communication from NBA to submit a formal self-assessment report along with the remaining 90% of the fee, and then the visit is going to be conducted. Otherwise, at this stage, a rejection will go if a program is. So this is a lot of transparency. If a program can know in advance whether they are eligible for accreditation or not, so they accordingly can decide whether they want to apply, or they can prepare themselves for the accreditation as and when in a time-bound manner based on these qualifiers. Same qualifiers are there for the tier 2 system. The only difference is that 60% has now become 50%. The first, second, third qualifier remains same in terms of vision, mission and POs, approval of AICT, zero deficiency report, and then the admission which was 60% in tier 1 has now become minimum 50% at institution level, minimum 50% at the program level, and the student faculty ratio remains 1:20. There it was 2 professors or 1 professor or 1 associate professor. Here it is the only 1 professor or 1 associate professor. Number of PhDs in tier 1 were 20%, in tier 2 it is 10%. Placement ratio remains same as 40%, and 2 batches condition is common across all disciplines if they are looking at NBA accreditation. Another concept which has been floated by NBA to help institutions in maintaining the quality without going for the visit is the compliance report. All the programs which have been accredited as per the NBA manual and the self-assessment report of January 2013, if they have got an accreditation under this manual or guidelines or SAR, then they can apply to NBA in a format which is under the title of compliance report, which typically looks at information at the time of submission from the date of the last accreditation, that in terms of faculty numbers, qualification, faculty student ratio, research and development, consultancy, short term training programs, student performance in terms of success rate, academic performance, placement. Then the criteria wise compliance status. Since this is a compliance report, the visit report is also sent back to the institution, and the expert committee gave some observation on various assessment points. Now these assessment points, it is expected that institution and program will write the compliance status during the period from the submission of compliance report from the visit date of the previous committee or receipt date of the report of the committee. Now when this report goes to the NBA, then basically NBA looks at that if the institution is able to maintain the quality as observed by the committee in the last NBA visit, then the accreditation is given for another term without going for a visit. If a committee looks at that program has significantly improved, and program also claimed that they have significantly improved, and they are looking now for not 2 years extension of accreditation but a higher level of accreditation which typically is 5 years, then there will be a visit by the NBA to consider their request based on the documentary evidence submitted along with the compliance report. Other option is that if a committee observed based on the compliance report that the program has significantly degraded, then also there will be visit to consider the continuation and discontinuation of the accreditation. The status of the documents as on date is UG Tier 1 document is effective from 1st January 2016, the new SAR. Tier 2 was available from July 1, 2015, and both EG stands for Evaluation Guidelines. Diploma also from 1st October 2015, and Pharmacy 1st January 2016. Management self-assessment report is almost ready and expected to be officially notified in a month or 2 months time. The important significant change is that the earlier prior to 2013 and from 2013 to 2015, each of the discipline, engineering, management, pharmacy, diploma, they were having 2-tier system. Now the tier system will only be available in the engineering because of Washington Accord requirement. For rest of the disciplines, there will be only single criteria, but then there will be riders to differentiate between the autonomous and non-autonomous institutions therein. Now, why do institutions fill SAR? Where is the need of filling SAR? This is the most important component when we look at our preparedness for NBA accreditation. The general practice, as I said that I'm not going to present SAR the way SAR looks like, but my job is to give you an insight how we can effect improvement when we start preparing of or filling of self-assessment report. General tendency is that we fill SAR and we feel that there is going to be a gap of 3 to 4 months for NBA visit, so we will take some corrective action when the visit is going to come. But look at how important points we will miss if we do not give so much thought and seriousness in terms of looking at filling of SAR. Because on one side, self-assessment report tells us the level of preparedness in terms of looking for accreditation. A program is expected to look at, are we looking at 5 years accreditation? Are we looking at 2 years accreditation? Accordingly, based on our expectation, we have to look at where we stand today. And then we have to find out a gap in how much time we will be able to meet our expectations, and then accordingly submit SAR. So self-assessment report on one side provides the preparedness status. One thing we all need to keep in mind is that NBA is not accreditation or quality stamp for maximum quality. NBA accreditation or any accreditation worldwide is an assurance of minimum quality. So you have to understand that whatever marks you will receive on a 1000-point scale, you have a gap. X marks, 1000 minus X marks gives the marks proportional, where the still program or the institution needs significant improvement in times to come. So on one side it gives the preparedness, but more importantly, this becomes the first impression about the institution and the program for the evaluators. Evaluators have not seen your institution, they have not visited, so they will, when they will visit your institution, the first impression they will have in their mind is only based on that whatever you have written in the self-assessment report for the institution as well as for the program. It also provides a very crisp program status to the evaluation team in terms of compliance status to many criteria of assessment as stipulated by the National Board of Accreditation. Then the expert job is to look at the compliance status and then visit the institution and the program and look for the documentary evidence to confirm the claims made by the institution. Significant changes in the self-assessment report from 2015 to I have written 2016 because tier 1 was notified in January 2016. So significant difference between the 2013 self-assessment report and 2015-16 self-assessment reports. Concept of first time accreditation and subsequent accreditation. Now what exactly this means? Earlier what was happening, that institution coming n number of times for NBA accreditation, every time same questions were asked. State this, mention this, define this, make the same table, show the same flow chart. Now if an institution has got accreditation many times, then what is expected in outcome based accreditation is the effectiveness of what was quoted in the previous term. So a new thought process was given. Let's differentiate somebody who is coming for the first time and somebody who is coming, who has already come for n number of times for NBA accreditation. So the first time accreditation will have many questions and weightages to these questions in terms of state this, mention this, define this. Next time accreditation will have what you did, whatever you defined, whatever you mentioned, how effective was the implementation of those statements. Who will be eligible for subsequent accreditation? This also has been made very clear. Somebody who has got full accreditation of 5 years will only be eligible for subsequent accreditation guidelines. Till program gets 2 years accreditation, they will not be, they have to follow the same format every time. So a program which has got in the preceding cycle full accreditation of 5 years will only be eligible for subsequent accreditation. I'm today also using accreditation period of 2 years and 5 years because NBA last month itself has changed the accreditation period to 3 years to 6 years. Everything remains same, only the period has changed, but 2 and 5 in that sense remains as it is. Other significant change is 7 program level criteria, 3 institution level criteria. So the set of criteria, because it's a program level assessment, you will see the weightage given to program, which typically 78% and only 22% weightage to institution level. No marks on the curriculum for tier 2 institution. Earlier there were weightages to the curriculum. Now curriculum in case of affiliated institutions, which are very, very high in number in Indian education context, it was beyond the control of institution. So now in the new format, it is only the content beyond, no marks on the curriculum for tier 2 institutions. Program education objective achievement has been removed from the self-assessment. Not this is done by NBA, but this is done by worldwide accrediting agencies. This is because we write in, for example, civil engineering programs that our graduates will take up employment in the areas related to civil engineering, areas related to mechanical engineering, and with this IT domain taking lot of core engineers. So at the end, objective in real sense is not getting met. So worldwide, POs are asked, but PO achievement assessment has stopped, and accordingly NBA has also made corrections in the self-assessment report. Base of outcome based education is course outcome attainment. We will see in the section of program outcome and course outcome. So the subsection on course outcome attainment has been included in as an explicit component of assessment at self-assessment level as well as at the evaluator assessment level. Emphasis on effective teaching learning. More emphasis has been given on the effective teaching learning process in the institution and the outcome attainment, which are at two levels: program outcome attainments as defined by the NBA and the program specific outcomes as expected to be defined by the program. Innovation by the faculty in teaching learning, as I said that the SAR has become more teaching learning centric. There is a component added with full understanding that it is expected that people will write how they are innovating in making teaching learning more and more interactive. The idea is that at 2 years, 3 years down the line, the NBA will look at some of the best practices incorporated by the faculty members, which has resulted in the positive outcome, will be put on the website for other institutions to look at and implement at their level. Expenditure per student is also included in the self-assessment report. This is to get a feel, if a student pays 1 lakh rupee fee 1 year of education, what percentage of this 1 lakh actually goes back to the institution or the program development. So this has been asked at both the components, at institution level as well as at the program level. Research consultancy. Now earlier expectation was there as per 2013 manual that each faculty member should carry out 1 lakh rupees research and 1 lakh rupees consultancy in order to get marks for each year of assessment. Now look at what was expected, that each faculty should have a research project, each faculty should have a consultancy project, each faculty should have a collaborative initiative, each faculty should have a patent, each faculty should have a copyright, each faculty should go through short-term training program, each faculty then teach also, guide students also. All faculty members for all years of assessment, which typically looks impossible from a real implementation perspective. And NBA accreditation is not faculty assessment. NBA accreditation is program assessment. So in the new SAR, the expectation is from the program, not from the faculty members, that so much amount program should have earned in through the form of a sponsored research or consultancy. Whether one faculty does that or many faculty does that is irrelevant in that sense. The assessment, which typically on input based things like classrooms, faculty rooms, medical, power backups, all have been removed in the new self-assessment report. New concept, which is the backbone of an outcome based education, is continuous quality improvement, is expected in the form of having a full-fledged academic audit system. Academic audit system which typically evaluates its own performance at institute and program level without looking for NBA accreditation on an annual basis, so that irrespective of when you go for NBA accreditation, as such you are looking at your processes and improving on continuous basis. Faculty performance appraisal, FPATs, has been included in order to look at training need analysis. Continuous improvement point is qualitative. First year admission, a program reputation, when you look at a program reputation, is typically not through lateral entry students which comes in the second year, is the first year level. So both things, numbers as well as ranks in terms of admissions, have been looked into by the new SAR. Student feedback on teaching learning. Now two feedbacks in the new self-assessment report exclusively sought in order to look at how the program is doing. Two feedbacks apart from generic feedback about the institution and program on teaching learning and the industry connect, exclusively sought at the program level to look at how program is looking at. Then outcome attainment, student and faculty. Look at three important components of outcome based education: student, faculty and the attainment, close to 50% in both the criteria. So heavy weightage is given to these three important components of any good quality education delivery as well as assessment. placement and higher studies. Earlier, higher studies was given higher weightage than the placement. 1.25 weightage was given to placement, higher studies, and 1 was given to placement. Now, both have been given equal weightage. Significant difference in the new SAR is that for each of the criteria and sub-criteria, an NBA expectation in the brackets have been explicitly laid out. The basic ground behind this is that there should be no communication gap between the institution and the evaluators in order to understand the context behind that sub-criteria. So these have been explicitly defined. SAR in the present form has got 3 parts. Part A, institutional information. Part B is typically program level criteria, and Part C is the declaration by the institution. It has one annexure, NBA defined program outcomes, which are compulsorily expected to be looked into by the program, and it is expected that program will then write program specific outcomes. We will see the purpose of program specific outcomes in the section when it comes. The criteria summary, as I said, that irrespective of tier, 78% weightages have been given to program level criteria. If you look at this table, you have to look at from the sub criteria marks. Generally what happens that when we look at the criteria, we only look at the main criteria. We have to prepare equally for all the criteria, but important thing here is when we prepare for the criteria, we have to look at the weightages given to the sub criteria in order to score maximum possible during our NBA self-assessment preparedness. And the experts, when they come, when we train the experts, we also tell them to evaluate with more kind of in-depth evidence assessment when the sub-criteria is heavily weighted. What do you mean by heavily weighted? If you look at vision, mission and program education objective, and if you look at tier 1, tier 2, marks weightage is only 10, 50 and 60. But if you look at even with this 60, you find one component with 25 marks. When you look at 50, you find two components with 15 marks. What it tells that this is one component in criteria has got close to 40%, 50% weightage. So I have to showcase as an institution this criteria to the best possible with the documentary evidence in order to gain maximum marks in this criteria, sub criteria. And if I get maximum here, naturally I get the maximum marks in the main criteria. Look at program curriculum and teaching learning. Both the components. If you look at tier 1, 70% weightage to teaching learning, 30% weightage to curriculum. When you look at tier 2, it is still much higher. Only 20 marks on content beyond curriculum, 100 marks on teaching learning. If you look at course outcome attainment and program outcome attainment are equally weighted. So you have to look at both the things with the same degree of emphasis. Student performance, you have got one component in either category with 30% or 40, close to 30% weightage, 40 marks in case of tier 2 and in case of tier 1, 31. The idea is not the marks. Idea is to look at the comparative weightages among the criteria as well as the sub criteria and put lot of emphasis when you look at the weightages proportionally. Faculty information and contribution. Why this is information and contribution? Some of the points in this criteria are only information in terms of qualification, experience and so on, and the contribution which is expected for quality improvement at the program level. So the 200 marks in case of tier 1, and that's why faculty has been given an important weightage, highest weighted parameter when we look at the assessment of any program at either tier 1 level or tier 2 level. Facilities and technical support, as I said that these are primarily the input based parameter, have been given less weightage, 80 on 1000 point scale. Continuous improvement 75 and 50, tier 1 slightly higher because tier 1 has got a full autonomy, and tier 2 50 marks on 1000 point scale. First, as I said that 7 criteria program level, program specific, 3 criteria are institution level. Weightages irrespective of tier 1, tier 2 remains 220, which is 22%. So 78, 22 is the weightage percentages between the program and the institution. First year, student support system, governance, institutional support and financial resources. If you look at the marks, the distribution is independent of tier 1, tier 2, it remains same. But what is the important thing here is you need to look at some of the criteria which are heavily weighted. If you look at the last criteria, 120 out of 120 marks, there is a one criteria which has got 55 marks. So close to 50% weightage to some criteria. When you look at tier 2, you have got 40 marks component there. So prepare for all the sub criteria with equal emphasis, but identify some of the criteria which NBA has given a special or higher weightage. You are expected to showcase a higher level of preparedness when you prepare for NBA accreditation in order to score maximum marks in these criteria. The first criteria in this is vision, mission and program education objectives. Weightage is 60. This typically, because since both the parameters, both the criteria for tier 1 and tier 2 remain same. So I have looked at one tier here. Context remains same, only for example this criteria in tier 1 will have 50 marks, but the weightages and everything will change according to the proportion. So 50 will have slightly lesser weightage and 60 will have higher weightage of the components within this. In this presentation I have also included evaluation guidelines. Now why I have indicated tier 2 marks here, because tier 2 evaluation guidelines are also officially notified by the NBA. So these are the official documents which so that we can share with the institutions and the programs in order to look at how the weightages will come. So what is expected in this sub criteria is that vision and mission statement should be available. They should be written in the appropriate form. What appropriate form means is, they, by the definition itself, vision is typically a statement which talks about your aspiration. What a program should want to become at some point of time is your aspiration. So it's typically is your dream. What is mission in terms of language is that you are looking at action plan to achieve your vision statement. And if the statements are available, statements are written correctly as per the expectation, and are they consistent? So if you look at 5 marks distribution, this 5 marks distribution is also given if they are available 1 mark, if they are rightly or appropriately written then 2 marks, and if the vision and mission is consistent. We'll see in the next slide how this consistency should be maintained, then 2 marks. Look at IIT Mumbai. IIT Mumbai vision statement. We can have n number of examples. You can look at other examples also. To be the fountainhead of new ideas and of innovations in technology and science. Now this is their aspiration, that they want to lead the concept of innovation and creativity, if I put creativity in new ideas, in the area of technology and science. When I spoke about consistency, look at how the mission statement looks consistent with the vision statement. To create an ambience of academic excellence. Now, to create an ambience of academic excellence, typically they are talking about the place where the students will learn, in which, now you look at how consistent vision is with the mission. Mission is with the vision. New ideas, research and scholarship flourish. Now new ideas and research, how they can flourish when there is a scholarship. So they will create an academic excellence which will promote new ideas, which will promote research. In order to have new ideas and research, they will have to have a scholarship scheme. Now if they have these 3 things at place, from which the leaders and innovators of tomorrow emerge. So somebody reading these 2 statements, even bifurcating this mission statement and sub elements, you will see there is a consistency and sync between the vision statement and the mission statement. The second expectation under the first criteria is state the program education objective. Now what is expected here is that a program will write 3 to 5 program education objective. When you say objective, what is the purpose of floating this program? Marks are subjective, which will be given based on the availability and based on the correctness. I have looked at the POs followed by many top universities worldwide. Typically POs are classified under 5 broad categories. Why do a program actually comes into existence? Is typically you want to prepare something who will take that program. Now preparation is, you may prepare your students for employment, you may prepare your students for higher studies, you may prepare your students for entrepreneurship, you may prepare for them even for a regional demand kind of thing. So first statement will come preparation. Second is core competence. Any student who will take a program is expected to become an expert in the core area of the program. Third is the breadth. Breadth is typically talking about the multidisciplinary knowledge of the student. Now what exactly this is defined worldwide in the recent terminologies T-shaped engineer. What is a T-shaped engineer? Is that T has got 2 lines. One is a horizontal line, another is a vertical line. The vertical line indicates depth of the expertise in the domain area in which a student is pursuing a course or a program. So if a student is pursuing a civil engineering program, he is expected to be an expert in a certain areas of the civil engineering. So the vertical line talks about the depth, horizontal line talks about the breadth, and knowledge about finance, knowledge about the interface discipline, knowledge about the project management, and so on. So this comes under the breadth. Then there is a fourth, professionalism, which typically talks about professional value, professional knowledge, and professional development. And the last one is that you will create some kind of habit in the graduate, would-be graduate, to become a lifelong learner, so that, because concept may remain same, but applications may change, new technologies may come. So student, once take up an employment or go for some kind of higher studies, continue to upgrade as he continue to serve the profession and the society. The third, which is where the vision and mission POs are published and disseminated among stakeholders. Now, if you look at the distribution of 10 marks, advocacy, if it has been done adequately, 2 marks. The process to make or the disseminate to the stakeholders, 2 marks. How the outcome based assessment comes up, look at 6 marks have been given extent of awareness. So you make a program may claim that they have made the stakeholders aware. So if they are able to show that they have adequately done, if they are able to show that there is a process, they only get 4 marks out of 10. But when the committee interacts with various stakeholders, they try to understand how much they are aware, which has been highly weighted sub-parameter assessment point here. The idea here is that how to assess ourselves, and there should not be any communication gap between the evaluators and the program which is preparing for accreditation. Look at the last lines written in red, which talks about NBA expectation as quoted in the self-assessment report, that where these statements should be available, availability on institute website under relevant program link. Generally, an institution website has a reference to the department or the program, so it is expected that these statements should come there. Availability at department notice boards, head of the department chamber, department website. If a program or department is maintaining its website, then it is expected that these statements should be there. Then any document which is published at the department level should have these statements, so that people read these statements and remember and practice when they are part of the department, and the documentary evidence to show that. Now these are the indicative set. If a program is doing, experts, those who will come for assessment, will also be knowing the same thing, and if a program is complying to these requirements, they will get marks. This is the heavily weighted parameter. State the process for defining, because this is very important, whether it was only done by one person or a team of 2-3 people and then they implemented it, or it was typically a all involved process. So vision and mission process 10 marks, program education, this is a formulation process. Since this is a first time accreditation, this is a formulation process, and the weightages are 10 marks to vision and mission and 15 marks to POs. What is expected is that in the process, there should be effective participation of stakeholders. With the participation of stakeholders, you are able to come out with these statements, then the process implementation. Now typically documentary evidence will look at how many what was your process of involving these stakeholders, how many stakeholders came in various meetings, what was the total set of suggestions given by the committee, how many suggestions you as an institution or program you accepted, how many suggestions were parked for further review, and how many were rejected. So all these will become part of documentary evidence. Typically when I look at any institution, this is a 5-step process. When I say 5-step process, the steps are, because institution comes first, and institution when it comes is typically the board of management, promoters comes first. Promoter can be a central government, promoter can be state government, promoter can be a self-financing society, trust, company, section 25. So promoter comes first. So they should be the first person to talk about how we want to grow the institution, how we want to grow the programs as we move forward in few years down the line. So the first level of brainstorming will be promoters, administrators. As promoters start, administrators comes. As administrators comes, faculty members come. Second level of brainstorming is the current set of students comes. The moment the first batch comes in the final year, then you have employers. Batch passes out, you have alumni, you have industry experts. The first level or the first step is you need to have a lot of brainstorming. Second step, which you need to do in parallel with the first step, is the benchmarking. The important word in that statement is the similar category of institution. I start an institution today, and if I benchmark to an institution which is 50 years old, then I think I'm not doing a right job. Benchmarking means you need to benchmark with a similar category of institution and try to look at the parameter. See, benchmarking is not saying that a college 15 years old, so my college is benchmarked with that. This is a statement. You have to look at, are you looking at placement? Are you looking at university results? Are you looking at learning of your students? Are you want your students to better the other institutions in terms of qualifying in the GATE examination? So you have to identify a set of parameters and then benchmark with those parameters any institution which is considered to be a better institution in the region, because the moment you benchmark, you accept that this institution is better than your institution. Nothing wrong in doing that, but then put a time frame to overcome the same set of benchmarks in a period of time. The step 3 is whatever you have done in step 1 and step 2, you need to get it validated by the experts which are considered to be experts from the academia as well as from the industry. If you have done step 1 and step 2 and step 3, if you do not make the stakeholders, which typically are the internal stakeholders, your students, your faculty members, your support staff, then the real impact you will not be able to see. So wide publicity in the institution, review in closed loop every 5 to 7 years. How this should be done typically is there should be a committee at institutional level, typically headed by the leader of the institution, and there should be a committee, and the members of this central committee should be the head of the departments of all the departments of the institution or the deans, and there should be a committee at the department level headed by the head of the department and the senior faculty members from the department. Idea is that departmental committee will make their own plans, and the implementation and the central committee will look at the implementation to ensure uniform implementation from the institution growth plan perspective across all departments. This typically is the OBE flow. If you look at the developmental or formulation process, it's a top down, because first the institution comes, then you have an institution vision, mission and objective. Institution as an institution has to float number of programs to achieve its objective. So program education objectives come. How we look at whether objectives are getting met or not, in the OBE outcomes are defined. Outcomes are nothing but the skill set you want your graduates to possess when they graduate from your program. So program outcomes are defined. How to look at the program outcomes, what program outcome you want to give. So a program floats number of courses in the program. So if you look at this structure of outcome based education, the formulation is top down. However, the assessment is bottom up, because your course outcome is the first step where you can assess something. So assessment is you first assess the course outcome, you assess the outcomes of all the courses, you connect this outcome to program outcome, connect program outcome to program education objective. As I said, the assessment of POs are not part of the new SAR, but this is to show you the flow that formulation is top down, assessment is bottom up. Typically worldwide there are 3 loops which works simultaneously. The loops are the inner loop, as I said, assessment is the innermost loop, course outcome. Then the outer loop is program outcome and program specific outcome, and program education objective is the outermost loop. Now these 3 loops continue to work in parallel. The idea is that you have courses, you have curriculum, you implement those curriculum, you at the end of the because frequency of assessment will vary depending on the course, depending on the outcome. So you have to measure the course outcome at certain frequency, look at whether you are able to attain all the outcomes. If not, then correct the courses, look at the program outcomes, and continue to be in the loop as long as you are able to meet all the expectation. The moment you are not able to meet any expectation of outcome from the courses perspective, program perspective, you come out to the higher loop and make the corrections with the help of stakeholders and implement it. The last assessment point in the first is the consistency of POs with the mission of the department. Now, a department will have number of programs, and a department is expected to have a mission statement. Now there are 2 statements: vision and mission statement at department level, vision and mission statement at the institute level. Since we are at the program level assessment, whatever we are assessing here is at the department or at the program level. Now a department has got a mission statement, and there is a program education objective which is for a particular program. Now here program is expected to demonstrate how these statements are in sync. So like we have seen the vision and mission statement, this is for program education objective versus the mission of the department. So since POs 3 to 5 program will be mentioning here, a mission statement typically is 3-4 liner statement. So it is expected that a program will have these statement broken into a smaller statement in terms of element, which has been defined as M1, M2, Mn. These mission elements when they'll be mapped with the program education objectives. Now all statements and all program education objectives will not be mapped with the similar level of relevance. That's why it is expected that low level, moderate level and the higher level of relevance in the form of 1, 2, 3 program will be able to exhibit here. But again, if you look at the distribution of 15 marks, 5 marks on matrix. If you prepare matrix in any form, you get only 5 marks. But if you are able to justify the consistency, then there is a assessment for 10 marks. Criteria 2 is program curriculum and teaching learning process. In the tier 2 is 120 marks. We'll see the distribution of 100 because this parameter is different as compared to tier 1. So wherever there is a variance from tier 1, the reference to tier 1 is also made in the subsequent slide. The first criteria is state the process to identify extent of compliance of the university curriculum for attaining the program outcomes and program specific outcomes as defined in the annexure 1. Now, as I said that there is no mark on the curriculum as far as tier 2 or affiliated institution is concerned. What is expected is that program should be able to have a process which demonstrate that there are certain gaps in terms of attainment of outcomes at program level and program specific outcomes from the curriculum as provided by the university. So they have to identify the gaps and then show how these gaps were covered in the next point. But if a program which is written in the form of note, if a program is able to demonstrate that the university curriculum is updated and with this curriculum they are able to attain all the program outcomes and the program specific outcomes, then whatever marks are given for the gaps will be merged with this criteria only and full weightage will be given to this criteria. The distribution of this is effective process implementation 6 marks and curricular gaps 4 marks. When you look at the coverage of gaps, the weightage given here is, it's not only how you identify the gaps, how if you have identified the gaps in the previous sub criteria, how you cover those gaps. If you look at this table, gaps identification, what actions you have taken, when those actions were taken, important thing is whether resource person was relevant and competent to cover those gaps, how many students from the program presented. Generally we write 100 students present, but how many from the program which is looking for accreditation. So number of students present and the topic covered by the resource persons, how many were relevant to the program outcomes and program specific outcome. The important thing here is to note from the tier 2 institution perspective is, if you have identified the gap, you need to intimate to university. That's why we have given the weightage there. Intimation to university 2 marks, delivery details 5 marks, and if they are mapped correctly 3 marks. The idea of intimating to university is that many institutions in an affiliated system, if they write to university that these are the gaps in the curriculum, then the board of studies will take cognizance of these letters and try to cover at some point of time. Now this I said that this is a parameter which is different than the tier 1 parameter. So in case of tier 1, program curriculum will have 30 marks. Since the complete curriculum is in the hand of the tier 1 institution, so now there is no concept of identification of gaps. What is expected is there is a process of making curriculum. Then if you have made the curriculum, what is the structure of the curriculum? Structure in terms of course, in terms of titles, contact hours and the credit assignment. Then how this curriculum is distributed on many sub-components of the curriculum in the form of basic sciences, basic engineering sciences, humanities, social sciences, core, electives, interdisciplinary electives, free electives, open electives, projects, internship and many other component of bringing innovation in the curriculum development, and program outcomes and program specific outcome attainment, process to identify the extent of compliance. So context remains same, weightages changes, expectation changes if a program is coming under the tier 1 category. Teaching learning remains same, teaching learning process 100 marks. Describe the process followed to improve quality of teaching learning. Now what it indicates is that, look at the question, it is expected that a program is maintaining a reasonable quality of delivering teaching learning, implementing teaching learning for delivering quality engineering education. Here the expectation is program looking at the processes to continuously improve the quality of teaching learning. And if you look at the distribution of 25 marks, academic calendar, which typically is adherence to academic calendar, pedagogical initiative given by the program, which is taken by the program. Generally, when we look at, we only look at the weak student identification. Here expectation is, on one side program should look at weak students and work on them to achieve the some level of expectations, but also look at the top students of your program and help them and support them to excel based on their competency level and attain a higher level of success. Because outcome based education, one of the biggest principle of outcome based education is success breeds higher level of success. That if you able to tell bright student and support that you are able to achieve success, but you deserve a higher level of success, and you support them, then they are expected to attain a higher level of success. Classroom teaching, committee will go and look at the classroom teaching. Committee in this new SAR is also expected to look at live experimentation to understand how the practicals are carried out. Continuous assessment and laboratories. As I said, that two feedbacks are explicitly sought. So here the teaching learning feedback, student feedback on teaching learning and action taken thereof. Documentary evidence to support in terms of activities carried out for all the years of assessment. 2.2.2 is the quality of internal semester question papers, assignment and evaluation. Now this point is applicable to both the tiers. This typically talks about in-semester paper setting by the program faculty members. So process to ensure quality, how a program ensures that the irrespective of which teacher sets the paper standard remains same in terms of internal assessment or continuous assessment. Process to ensure quality of question paper. Now this is the most important component. Process to ensure quality of question paper from outcome learning perspective. Now what exactly this means is a program is setting question papers for its students. Are these questions looking at the outcome attainment? Now how typically this is done worldwide is that question paper setting generally is followed through Bloom's taxonomy. Now Bloom's taxonomy has got 6 levels. Remembering, understanding. What it means is the lowest level is remembering. Students should be able to remember. Next level is from the lower side. Next level is understanding. If a student is able to remember something, is a student is able to understand what he has remembered. The third level is if a student is able to remember, student is able to understand, then is a student is able to apply. So third level is applying. If a student is able to apply, then student is able to evaluate it vis-a-vis other applications in the same area. So is he able to evaluate in terms of his own application principles, application process, application methodology follow. So the remembering, understanding, applying, evaluating, then looking at synthesizing it, whether other approaches available, vis-a-vis how our approach looks at, how I can further optimize this approach. And if he's able to do to level 5, then the next one is create something new, create something which is innovative in nature is the highest level of Bloom's taxonomy. I would like to put it very explicitly that remembering and understanding do not contribute to outcome attainment at any level. It typically talks about if you ask your students to reproduce any theorem, it typically talks about that page number so and so of a book they need to reproduce on the answer sheets in order to, so defining, mentioning, reproducing theorems are good for the understanding whether they have looked at or not, but the outcome attainment typically talks about skill set comes from the application level or applying level. So we have to look at the question paper, evidence of CO's coverage, which typically course outcomes coverage, quality of assignments. Similar, as we are looking at quality of question papers, we also have to look at the quality of assignments. So teacher has to look at whether are these assignments challenging to the students, are students able to find difficulty in giving answers and relevance to course outcomes. Now every time we do the projects, this has been practice followed many years worldwide to do the projects. This has been given significant weightage on many counts. Many counts in the sense whether the weightages have been given to environment, safety, ethics, cost. Project may have done, but then whether there is a sincere efforts made by the program that whether they look at how whether environment is a factor, whether safety is a factor, whether ethics, which is a big issue in nowadays, is a factor, whether department has a process, program has a process, do they classify their projects? Projects are done by students, either single student or group students, whether they define whether project type is application, how many of these projects in last 3 years application type projects, how many are research based projects, how many are product type, how many are typically reviews, in order to segregate the projects at their end, in order to monitor the quality of their own projects, standards followed, processes related to project identification. All these then have been given weightages. If you look at the last few lines, identification of project and allocation methodology weightage, types and relevance of the projects and their contribution, process for monitoring and evaluation, how those projects are monitored and evaluated, process to assess individual and team performance. This is a significant addition. At undergraduate level, generally it's a team project, whether efforts have been made by the program to look at the, because all may not have contributed equally, our program looking at highest contributor to the lowest contributor on some point scale. So whether there is an effort to identify individual contribution vis-a-vis team contribution in developing that project, quality of projects, which typically how the program will demonstrate when the committee visits, then the evidence of paper published, awards received by the projects. Now 2.2.4 and 5 is typically connect with industry. 4 talks about connect with industry from when the industry visits the program. 5 talks about when the program outreach to the industries in terms of support. So what is expected here is industry supported laboratories, industry involvement in the program design and partial delivery of the course. Generally when we invite experts, we invite for something which is content beyond, and generally we invite for 1 hour lecture, 2 hour lecture, which with due respect to all the lectures are good lectures, but when here we are looking at industry involvement as a part of curriculum delivery to the undergraduate students. So partial delivery of any regular course for students. Impact analysis. If your impact analysis means you have set of faculty members coming from the industry in any mutual model, acceptable model in terms of curriculum design, in terms of taking lectures, in terms of even taking practicals, in terms of becoming co-guide for the student, project co-guide for the students, are you able to look at significant improvement? So this significant improvement has to be assessed. So impact analysis of industry institute interaction and action taken thereof. What is important here is when you assess yourself or the evaluators will assess the program, type of industries, type of laboratories, what was the objective of setting up these laboratories, if the objective was correct, whether these laboratories were utilized to the maximum possible, and if they are utilized, how effective were the utilization, and the documentary evidence to support that. As I said, that next point talks about outreach, how the program is making efforts to go to the industry. So industrial training tours for students, industrial internship summer training of more than 2 weeks, and post training assessment. Generally we send the students either through efforts from the program or their own students' own effort, but is program putting up an effort to do the assessment post training in order to ensure that the objective for which students were sent to the industry are actually met in real sense or not. So there is an effort made to have a post training assessment. Then impact analysis of industrial training. The purpose was to send them to feel that whatever they have learnt in theory, see the practice it in the industry or observe the practice in the industry. Is a student feeling competent and confident on the same topics and same concept after having done the industrial training? And this is a second feedback about from the student on the very important component of feedback on this aspect, going to industries, observing practices in the industry, about the program initiative on this. So 2 feedback, one is on the teaching learning, another is on the student feedback when they actually go to the industries. The third component is course outcomes and program outcomes. As I said that it has got 3 components in both the segments. Marks given as 20, 50, 50 and another is 20, 75, 75. The most important component here is the course outcome, and as I said in the differentiator, that is a separate criteria, sub-criteria on course outcome has been added in the new SAR. In the first criteria, sub-criteria, it is expected that for 1 course per semester, typically it's a program level assessment, so from 3rd semester to 8th semester, program is expected to identify 1 course which typically should fall under the category of core course. So 6 courses they have to identify, and 6 courses program is expected to write the program outcomes which are explicitly written in the form of guidelines that course should have around 6 course outcome for each of the course of study. So how they have to write course name, CII stands for the year of study, like 202 is typically second year, second course for the year 2014, 13-14. And then they have to write the statements like this. 202.1 indicates the first course outcome of the course. We'll see in the subsequent slide how exactly these means. 202.2 is the second course outcome. So here they will write only the statements, and the experts and the program and the professor who is writing from the program side will look at whether these statements are written correctly or not. So evidence of COs being defined for every course. Typically they have to keep ready for all the courses when the committee visits, but when the program will write in the self-assessment report, then they have to write only for the 6 subjects, which preferably one subject per semester from 3rd to 8th semester, and marks are given on the appropriateness of the statements. Now this is something how the course outcomes should be. As I said, that outcomes typically talks about the skill set, the attributes of being able to do something. So if you look at a subject of digital logic circuit design, how these course outcomes will come. Expectation is that within a course, a faculty member should identify that if this course student completes, then what are the areas which student should be able to do in the form of application of the topics which they have learned in the course, and accordingly then they have to frame these statements. Student will be able to apply knowledge of number system, codes and Boolean. Now number system, codes and Boolean algebra must be the topics under the digital logic circuit design. So when we look at the outcome, when you are declaring your student successful in this subject, so a student will be able to apply knowledge of number system, codes and Boolean algebra to the analysis and design of digital logic circuits. Students will be able to identify, formulate and solve engineering problems in the area of digital logic circuit design, use the techniques, skills and modern engineering tools such as LogicWorks and VSDL, necessary for very high definition language, engineering practice, function on multidisciplinary teams. So if you write these statements, then what is expected is that all your assignments, all your internal exam papers, if exam papers, if it is in your hand, should have questions which are based on these outcomes, so that at the end when you assess them, you can say that that outcomes are met or not. Then the next is COPO matrix of courses selected in 3.11.1. Now 6 courses you have selected. 6 courses has got individually around 6 course outcome. How these course outcomes are relevant to the 12 program outcomes as defined by the NBA and mentioned in the annexure 1. What is expected, this will be more clear when we will see the program outcome and course outcome attainment, what exactly this means. So once you have these statements written, all statements may not be equally relevant to program outcomes. So here you have to write that how these individual course outcome of a particular course are relevant in terms of level 1, 2, 3, which are low, medium and high in terms of relevance. So all 6 subjects you have identified, 6 subjects will come here and their relevance will come here. Next is, which is called as program articulation matrix. Now all the courses which a student is expected to study from the first semester of the course to the final semester of the course, typically 8th semester of the course, will come here. Here the individual course outcome will not come, here the course will come. 101 is the first year course, second year, third year, final year course. So the course will come here and their relevance with the program outcomes will come here. So this table tells 30 courses, how these courses, if I look at horizontally, for example, if I look at C101, I will be able to say after seeing this table is which are the program outcomes to this 101 is connected with. If I look vertically, respective column, then I can say that P01 first course outcome, how many courses are connected with. So this is the way this table will give the complete graph. This is the most important one. If we are able to declare course outcome attainment appropriately, then irrespective of mapping, we have of course outcomes with the program outcomes and program outcomes with the program education objectives, all above levels will automatically be met. Describe the assessment process used to gather the data upon it. So first part of this, because this is 50 marks point, 10 marks are given in terms of the what tools you are using for declaring the attainment process. The course typically is the direct assessment. Most of the assessment in a course assessment is direct assessment in the form of tutorials, exam questions, assignments, laboratory tests, project assessment. student portfolio. So assessment tools, if a program is writing, then the weightage is 2 on 10-point scale. But important thing is how those processes qualitatively were implemented, and how implemented and written, and relevance has been given 8 on 10-point scale. Now this comes the crux of outcome based education and declaring OBE. Now the example here is also true for tier 1 institution, but first I will explain for tier 2 how to declare the course outcome of courses. Now if you look at the course outcome, each program will define that what are their set labels for defining the course outcomes. In case of university examination, how the attainment levels will be defined. In case of affiliated institution, there are two set of examination. One set of examination is done by the program at program level, because across the country these weightages are varying. Some of the affiliating universities program has 20% weightage, 80% to university examination, some has 30%, some has 40%, some has 0% weightage to program. So it all depends which university this program belongs to. So two inputs in a course will come. One input will come through the continuous assessment at the program, which are typically internal assessment, and next will come through university examination. Now the assumption made here is that we know that in an affiliated system, a program faculty member may not have access to setting of question paper which has come for the examination, may not even have access to the answer sheet of their own students. Now there were two options available. One is, if a 20% weightage is with the program, declare the attainment only basis of 20% is one approach. But the counter to this is that we are declaring course outcome only under 20% of the assessment. The other approach is, whatever, without looking at the question paper from the outcome attainment perspective, there may be a question paper of a university where no question on the outcome attainment has been asked. But looking at understanding this, the performance of students in the end semester examination, with the assumption that if they are able to clear that paper, they must have attained the outcome proportional to the weightage and the questions asked in the end semester examination. So we thought this is a better approach to look at the declaration of course outcome attainment. Now how to measure the course outcome, how program can set the attainment levels. Now attainment level a program can set by looking at the average performance of the students in the same program in the university. If a university is not able to, or not declaring the average performance or the average score in the program for that particular year of study, then a program can look at the student, its own students' performance in last 3 years, and then this performance can become an indicative setting of the target levels while declaring the attainment process. Now in this example, as quoted in the SAR, 3 levels have been defined. The first level is 60% students scoring more than set attainment level in the final examination, which typically is the end semester examination. Level 2 is the 70% students. Now assume that the university average performance is 60%, then the level 1 is 60% students scoring 60% marks. Level 2 is 70% students scoring 60% marks. Level 3 is 80% students scoring 60% marks. Now look at, there are two variables. The first variable is percentage of students. Second variable is percentage of marks scored in the examination. Now what this example tells, that performance of students in the university examination has been kept constant, and the percentage students have been varied. That's why 60% students 60% marks, 70% students 60% marks, 80% students 60% marks. So what the program has done is that performance of students has been kept constant and the percentage of students has been varied. Now this is one approach. Another approach is a program can set the attainment levels by keeping number of students constant. I can have an attainment level for my course, 60% students scoring 60% marks as level 1, 60% students scoring 65% marks in the university examination is level 2, 60% students scoring 70% marks in the examination as level 3. Here what I am doing is, I am keeping number of students constant, but I am taking my levels of performance in the university to a higher level, which may be a better approach of defining the attainment levels. The third approach is, since there are two variables, I can vary both the variables, 60% students 60% marks, 65% students 65% marks, 70% students 70% marks. So it is up to the program to set the attainment levels, but then if your average performance is 60%, you cannot set your lower level at 50%. So whatever is your average performance should be the level 1 and set the higher targets for the level 2 and level 3. What exactly this means from the continuous assessment perspective? Attainment is measured in terms of actual percentage of students getting set percentage of marks. If the targets are achieved, for example, if the level set was course level 1, then attainment level 1, if this level 1 is achieved, then as a part of continuous improvement, level 2 becomes a target for next year as a part of continuous assessment. If due to any reason, if a program is not able to achieve the set targets for the current year, nothing wrong in that. Then at least as a part of continuous process, if a program is able to demonstrate that they have identified the gaps and improved in the next year, then that is also taken as a part of continuous assessment. So this is one level of input which will come for the course outcome attainment, which is end semester examination. In case of tier 1 institution, since it is not going to be a university examination, same methodology will be followed by the program for the end semester examination as per the weightage decided by the tier 1 institution. Now the other input in the course outcome which comes through continuous assessment. So look at this example. Midterm test 1 addresses the first course outcome. We saw some of the course outcomes there. 202.1 indicates the first course outcome of the course 202, and 0.2 indicates 202 second course outcome. Now these are internal tests: midterm semester test 1, midterm semester test 2, and as we saw some of the course outcome statement, what it says is out of maximum 20 marks for this test, 12 marks are associated with 202.1 and 8 marks are associated with 202.2. Now in order to declare successful, student may not have attempted some of these questions, so that percentage comes separately. Here we are looking at attainment, so we will look at the student performance for these 20 marks on this midterm test 1 and midterm test 2. Again, the attainment level will be set as we have set for the university examination, that 60% student more than 60% marks out of the relevant maximum marks. So for example, if I am looking at the weightages attainment level for 202.1, I will look at that 60% of my student should have scored more than 60% marks out of 12 marks. So my level 1 will come in order to look at the individual course outcome attainment for a particular course. Again, same methodology will be followed, that how in terms of looking at the total if they have achieved these outcomes, this will become a higher level of targets for the next year. If they have not, then they have to identify. Now look at, for example, which is written in the red, in order to look at how course outcomes are declared. Attainment through end semester examination, let's look at substantial, maybe level 3. Attainment through continuous assessment, moderate, it comes through 2. Now we have got 2 levels. Now these 2 levels, these 2 levels are for the attainment of a particular course.